Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles, the #1 House of the Dragon podcast in the realm. Presented by Bolen Media. I am your host, Ross Bolen, joined as always by Barrett Dudley, straight into the studio from watching the episode. Barrett, any first words?
Yes, I just flew in on Vagar, who I stole from some kids.
You stole it from a kid?
I stole it from some kids, man. It was tight. Yeah, I just
like a bicycle, huh?
Yeah, it was a real baller move on my part.
Some punk kid. You just took his took his wings.
Yeah, and then I beat the shit out of some little girls and was gonna maybe murder some other kids. But then one of them cut my eye out, and that's what happened. So, but it's cool because I got the dragon out there. So
I'll say this: the first 20 minutes of the episode made me feel like we might have an easy ride tonight, you and I.
Yeah.
Like in terms of podcasting.
Yeah.
Like I was like, all right, this is a nice slow one where it's just going to be about conversations.
Right. And not even that many conversations. Everybody's just kind of looking at each other.
A lot of staring.
A lot of awkward, furtive glancing and staring.
Yes, exactly. And then the last 20 minutes really bent me over a barrel and showed me the 50 states, if you will, because I was like, oh my God, I can't even take notes fast enough as this is occurring on screen.
Yeah, but I actually, before we jump into the episode and gets all the housekeeping and names of the episodes and, and all that sort of stuff, I actually do have something that I just want to start with because maybe other people are like right here with me at the end of that episode. Rhaenyra and Daemon, they knew the plan. That was the plan.
So I think that's the big question, right?
Or Laenor and Crazy Carl with a Q pulled a fast one on him.
Did Daemon pay Carl with a Q and say, go set up this situation that you and Laenor are both going to be in on so you can escape and everybody wins? Or did Daemon pay Carl and say, you're going to kill your boyfriend? And then Carl went to Laenor and said, here's what we're going to do.
Right.
I think it's the latter.
Okay. But
I do not think
we see
Daemon knew.
Daemon ripped that dude's neck in the hallway.
Like he was part of the...
And that's the guy that they put in the fire. Right?
Okay,
but
never mind.
But I mean, I can talk myself out of that, too.
So
he was just helping Carl get into the throne room, or the living room.
Yeah, but the fact that he was there helping him at all... Okay, so I hadn't pieced in when they showed Daemon, like... come up behind that guy and do the old-fashioned head snap.
the spy head snap.
Which I'm still not sure is possible.
Judo jump!
Like, I did not put that with what occurs afterward because it all gets so crazy. So, okay, perhaps he was... then it didn't play out in a way that made that obvious to me.
It definitely did not, especially with the earlier conversation where he and Rhaenyra are basically talking about how anybody can do depraved-ass shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like...
And she wasn't like... He said, you realize your husband has to die. And she was like, yep. She wasn't like, and I want to save him.
Right.
Let's do this.
Okay. So they were they were obfuscating pieces of this conversation, and maybe we are supposed to be kind of like scratching our heads about exactly what went down there. It just didn't seem very like I could see Rhaenyra having that type of heart. She does like Laenor, like she cares for him, yada yada. Daemon doesn't seem like the type to just like let that loose end flow in the breeze. Now, you mean
allowing him to live,
allowing Laenor to live, and go off.
So that's why I'm not all the way there. I don't really know exactly what to make of what we saw there, because if you just go off the Daemon conversation, it seems very much like he just wants to have Laenor killed. If you just go off of Rhaenyra and Daemon's conversation, it seems very much like she just is cool with him being killed.
Yeah, he says a quick death with witnesses.
Yeah, he tells him point blank, Carl with a Q, a quick death with witnesses.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's enough to draw out that he was inferring you guys should stage his death by burning a corpse.
Yeah.
And then bounce. But I will say this.
He does kill. Then he is the one that rips the neck of that one dude. So
clearly, Carl with a Q and Laenor are both in on the plan before the swords are drawn.
Yes.
That is all stage play right there. Yep. Like they've already decided they're going to draw blades and have steel meet steel, Barrett.
Yeah.
And then that kid runs off, and then there's nobody left to see them bounce and shave his head on the way to the boat. They just quickly shaved his whole dome. So he's lost his Valyrian hair, if you didn't notice that.
That's right. I hope he kept. He better have kept that evidence on him.
Yeah,
those braids. Yeah,
can't leave that behind.
Can't leave that behind. That would be very sus.
Yeah, you got to burn them like your fingernails.
Okay,
your fingernail
right.
clippings.
Well,
Because if they get them, they can do the evil on them. Barrett, we learned that.
Right.
In The Sopranos when Tony goes to Italy.
Yeah.
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 All right, you want to get into this thing?
Okay, let's jump into it. Yeah, I wanted to ask that real quick because that seemed like the big burning question for me.
By the way, Barrett and I both wearing bolenmedia.com/shop merch today. Barrett's got the very on point and apt party like Damon, slay like Rhaenyra, and I have the very apt save a horse, ride a dragon.
Yeah.
Both of which are very relevant for today's show. Both of which are new in the OCC shop on bolenmedia.com/shop. So get in there, grab yourself some merch, support the show. We appreciate y'all. We start off the episode at Lady Lena's funeral, and everybody is there. Otto is back as Hand of the King, by the way, as we sort of predicted. He's got his pin on. Damon inappropriately laughs at the funeral. Again, we must all grieve in our own way, I suppose. This guy's really weird about death. Viserys looks basically as shitty as he did last week, no?
Yeah, he does. I don't think
still hasn't fixed the sleeve issue. The sleeve that we addressed on Patreon is still hanging in the breeze.
Yeah, yeah.
But half an arm under there, I believe.
I can't imagine that more than a couple of months have passed here.
Yeah, so not a huge time jump,
if that. So yeah.
Which, but I would note just up front, we are going to get another one, I believe.
Looks like we're getting
this
another
episode
one
and
between
next,
this episode
where
and
the
next.
kids are aged up.
Yes.
A lot of these kids we just met will be older. The kids we saw, brutalizing each other.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, that's okay. Larys, it is noted, is the new Lord of Harrenhal, and he won't stop staring at Queen Alicent.
Unabashedly,
I guess this is him just being like, remember what I said about that favor I'm going to cash in?
Yeah. Remember how I murdered my dad and my brother?
That was last episode, and I'm still here being me.
I did that.
Staring at you ominously.
Yeah.
Lucerys, son of someone, drops a Jon Snow. It's Corlys's son, Lucerys, who's being told he's going to be taking over the birthright of...
No, that's Rhaenyra's son.
Oh, Rhaenyra's son.
That's Luke.
Lucerys.
Lucerys is his full name.
Okay, these kids were difficult to keep track of this episode, no lie.
The two elder sons of Rhaenyra and Laenor/Harwin are Jaehaerys, or no, not Jaehaerys, Jacaerys, who they call Jace.
And then Lucerys, who they call Luke.
Who they call Luke. Now, don't know, book readers can fill us in here. It's almost like they were like, hey, you know what? These two little shitheads that we're making, we're making them out to be real shitheads on purpose. We're going to shorten their Valyrian names to be like American shithead kid names, Luke and Jace.
To kind of match the vibes?
To kind of match the vibes, right?
Okay.
Because I could see them doing that.
In this scene, it's Corlys explaining to Luke.
Corlys comes over and explains to Luke that as the second son, not the eldest, who is in line for the throne, that he will get Driftmark, because that's Laenor's... I'm doing air quotes. Those of you that are not on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's Laenor's son, and he will be a Valerian, remember, not a Targaryen, because he won't sit the Iron Throne. Therefore, he's the one that would come back and take the seat in Driftmark.
And Luke hits him with a Jon Snow. I don't want it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good point, by the way. If he gets it, that means that everybody's dead.
Yes, he did make
also kind of a foreboding statement.
Corlys is like, my own foreshadowing here. Rhaenys comforts Daemon and Lena's daughters. Lady Lena obviously Dracarys herself last episode.
Right.
Her two kids, they keep flashing to everybody, like kind of coming by and comforting them, etc. Aegon is getting wasted on wine, talking shit, being a dickhead. And Laenor walks out into the ocean to grieve. He's beside himself. He lost Joffrey Lawnmower.
Joffrey Lawnmower.
And I believe this was his sister, Lena.
Lena, his sister, yeah. Also, the Queen, Alicent, her daughter, we spend a little scene with her just
the spider
repeating
whisperer?
A poem and talking to a spider.
Taming a spider into a clam?
Yeah, what's going on there?
Not really sure. Aegon thinks she's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like that there's something wrong with her.
But says that they both, they do have something in common. They both fancy creatures with long legs.
Yeah. He's Aegon horny.
Aegon's horny. He's about to go up to bed, and by bed, I mean he's going to stand out the window in Driftmark and jerk another one off, so.
Drop another load out the window. Yeah, that kid's a problem.
Rub another one out.
He's he just wants to party, man.
Full buck ass naked.
Maybe the shirts should have said "Party like Aegon." Party like Aegon, slay like Rhaenyra,
and slay like Aemond.
Yeah. You know? Hey, fair enough.
Those two crazy kids.
So Corlys notices Laenor is grieving in the ocean and goes and grabs his boy Carl with a Q by the neck and is like, "Go get your what does he refer to him as? Retrieve your patron. Retrieve your patron." And Corlys's brother, do you remember his name? It's also funny for one reason or another. Well, we met him out in the Stepstones at one point. He restrains Corlys here. Like you mentioned earlier, this scene is just pretty much nonstop awkward glances and like precarious looks between all of our main Targaryen characters and then the side characters, right?
Yes. If you did not watch the Inside the episode afterwards, they mentioned that this is one of the very first scenes that they filmed.
Really? That's interesting.
And that the vibe where like none of the actors had really gotten to play around all that much.
Sure,
like,
sure.
There was a bit of kind of awkward tension, and it suited this. It suited the scene really well because like that's what this was about. Is like everybody kind of not knowing what to do with one another. Everybody's kind of hiding a secret of some sort. Everybody is like
has something up in the air
yeah,
still.
You're trying not to like step on toes. You also don't want your toes stepped on. The kids are all a mess.
There's a lot of grieving. Everybody's just lost
happening.
somebody.
Everybody, yeah. So it's just a mess out here. And I love this episode, by the way. Here's my nitpick. They obviously shot this during the day. The whole thing they shot during the day. And you could see that there were like blue sky and clouds. And then they just like filtered it to try to make it look like dusk and nighttime. Did you notice that at all?
Not really, but now that I'm looking back,
it was weird.
It was
really,
more
really
sepia
weird.
than usual or whatever.
Yeah, like they very clearly like shot in broad daylight and had to use that as the nighttime scene.
Like, all right, we're not waiting for the weather.
Yeah. And or they just couldn't get the lighting right for the nighttime or whatever.
It's a good sign about the episode that that's your nitpick.
But you could it was just very obvious and like took me out of it for a second because I was like I could just tell. I was like, that's daytime and there's some weird, light lens on top of this film to like make it look sort of dark, but instead it just looks like filtered daylight. So yeah.
Didn't notice that. But yeah, it is incredibly awkward between all of these characters. Viserys talks with Daemon. He says the gods can be cruel. Daemon says, seems they've been especially cruel to you.
Yeah, this is like the third time that Daemon gets invited back to court, right?
Back to King's Landing. Yeah.
Kind of a pattern with these two.
Viserys always breaks.
Let's bury the hatchet.
Ends up trying to make the peace, and Daemon responds pretty angrily and not in really a way we can fully understand as an audience, I don't think. But he storms off and he passes Otto Hightower, who he seems surprised to see, and he drops a "no matter how fat the leech grows, it always wants for another meal" on Otto. Viserys leaves, and on his way out,
he sees that man.
Yeah,
he sees him.
He's always seen him. Remember, even back before Otto got shit canned, he was warning Viserys, "Hey, you're surrounded by people who are using you, and I want to protect you from that." But Viserys didn't see it. Viserys does leave this little gathering out here, and on his way out, he says, "I'm going to bed, Emma," to Alicent.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's his dead wife. He's doing that thing. That's a trope that old white guys seem to be pulling frequently in television and movies lately.
Calling their new wife their old wife?
Yeah.
Where else did you see that?
I don't know. I feel like it happened on Succession.
Yeah.
I feel like it happened on Arrested Development.
Okay.
Just to name a couple. But yeah, so he's clearly slipping mentally now, I think is the takeaway there, right? So Alicent looks like shocked, like, what the hell? This guy confused about my name.
I'm actually glad you brought up Succession because, like, between this scene and then the scene after the eye gouging, this episode kind of reminded me of that one Succession episode where like the Roys and like the Liberal family all get together
out at the gathering place. Yeah,
and just like goes horribly wrong, and like there's all these like weird little combinations, and the kids are fighting or fucking or
there are a lot of parallels, man. If you haven't watched HBO's Succession, it is a very modern day version of sort of the Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit, but like HBO knows how to do Succession shows, whether it's Succession, Righteous Gemstones is another one.
Sure,
it's like basically the same plot. Obviously, Game of Thrones and now House of the Dragon. It's like very much like it's rich material, Ross.
It is. We enjoy it.
The
Succession.
People.
We enjoy it. Sir Criston is now Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, I think. Somebody calls him Sir.
No, it's still Sir Harold is still.
Oh, I thought somebody calls him Sir, and I thought he corrected them Lord Commander.
No, it's like he just that's like a.
Oh, he was responding, Lord Commander.
Lord Commander.
Oh, yeah. Okay, classic.
Yeah.
Otto Hightower finds Aegon shit-faced on the staircase and sends him to bed, and then Aemond appears to be off, like we find, obviously, he's looking for Vhagar here. He's looking off into the distance, off the castle walls, trying to see where's that dead woman's dragon at. He's still at the funeral. Kid.
Yeah.
No respect.
No respect.
No respect. But yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Calm.com. Back in 2020, I got into meditation for the first time, and it was definitely something I kind of judged as weird before I tried it. And holy shit, has it changed my ability to stay centered and calm throughout the course of my stressful life. So was meditating more regularly one of your intentions for this year? How is it going? Whether you're crushing your goals or need a little boost, Calm can help. With Calm, you can jumpstart or continue your meditation practice and find peace of mind today. We are partnering with Calm, the #1 mental wellness app, to give you the tools that improve the way you feel, reduce stress and anxiety through guided meditations, improve focus with curated music tracks, and rest and recharge with Calm's imaginative sleep stories. If you have trouble falling asleep, they're fantastic. They've got them for both children and adults, by the way, if your kids have trouble falling asleep. There's even new daily movement sessions designed to relax your body and uplift your mind. If you go to calm.com/dragon, you get a special offer, 40% off a Calm premium subscription, and new content is added every week. Over 100 million people around the world use Calm to take care of their minds. Calm is ready to help you stress less, sleep more, and live happier and healthier. For listeners of our show, Calm is offering, again, it's an exclusive offer, 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/dragon. Go to calm, calm.com/dragon for 40% off. Unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/dragon. So Rhaenys is upset that Daemon and Lady Laena were in Pentos when she died. And she's expressing this, her dismay, to Corlys. When Corlys tells her he's trying to win the crown back for her, right? And she gets even more upset by that, tells him it's actually his ambition and his refusal to abandon the pursuit of it that has brought them to this moment and even put their children in danger, she says, even at the cost of their children.
Yeah, another big theme in this episode, right, is like the idea of basically parents trying to live vicariously through their children.
Or use their children for their own means.
Or use their children for their own means, or do both at the same time. But that's clearly kind of what, Otto makes reference to, like, how he and Alicent can win this together later in the episode, which we'll get to. But yeah, there's definitely all the little weird glances and awkward conversations, and there was like that one where like Aemond and either Luke or Jaehaerys kind of like look at each other, like it's like they're almost about to say something to each other. They kind of want to, but
a lot of nonverbal communication.
But they don't, and it's probably because they kind of know that their parents hate each other. Or they know they just know that there's this weird awkward tension. And so that's I know that the showrunners have talked about this whole like idea of this being like a generational show,
right?
And I think this episode did a really nice job of kind of like furthering those motifs about like, like you're just kind of, as a child, these kids, like they almost don't have a choice in some of this. They're kind of thrown into it.
And I think that's kind of the point.
When they have no real ill will towards one another other than that which they're carrying from their parents.
I mean, it's one of the things that you ask in Succession, that you ask in The Sopranos. It's, did these people choose this life, or were they born into it? Mm-hmm. And how much can you judge them as a result? In this particular scene, I'll say Corlys throws around a lot of heavy quotes. He drops, what is this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy?
Yeah, it got very Shakespearean here.
He says, history does not remember blood, it remembers names. Like, he can only respond in Instagram captions here. Rhaenys tells him that Rhaenyra's children are not of his blood, obviously, and that Laena's are, the late Lady Laena, and that she wants to disinherit their son of Driftmark, and I think give it to one of the daughters, the oldest daughter?
Yeah, Baela.
Because their son is going to inherit the Iron Throne, and his children will inherit the Iron Throne, I suppose.
Yeah, his eldest will inherit the Iron Throne.
He'll be king consort.
And he'll be king consort, so it's like, she's kind of saying, like...
He doesn't need this.
They've got that.
Yeah. But all in all, that whole relationship, I mean, they're very much like this political maneuvering couple, right? Like, where it's both of them playing the game kind of together on the same team, seemingly on the same page most of the time so far. Going to be interesting to see how their marriage plays out. Rhaenyra goes on a walk with Daemon on the beach and tells him her marriage is obviously like a farce, but that they did try to conceive a child, which comes up a couple times in this episode, actually.
Indeed.
They performed their duty as best they could, but to no avail, and there was no joy in it. She says she found that elsewhere, which she's kind of almost being like you taught me, sicko sexual uncle. And they discussed the curse of Harren.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is the curse of Harrenhal.
That's right.
Yeah. Whether basically they're throwing out whether or not Alicent murdered Lord Lionel and Harwin Breakbones. Harwin Strong. Yeah. The Strong Boys. So it's interesting to me that that's like something, basically no one pinned that on Larys. He's completely gotten away scot-free here, other than obviously Alicent, who knows full well what he did.
Yeah, I think Larys is kind of making moves in the background. I think even, Sir Criston kind of cluing Alicent earlier in the episode on the fact that, like, hey, that dude is just like weirdly staring at you the whole time.
Like he doesn't really know who he is.
He doesn't really know about their
secret relationship.
Yeah.
Did they go to these dinners every night?
Maybe he does, because wouldn't he be guarding her room when Larys is in there all the time?
Yeah, but doesn't Larys strike you as the kind of cat who'd find a way into the room without him? Have some other way.
Yeah. Also that. So, but yeah, point being, I think Larys's kind of role in all of this is relatively a well-kept secret at the moment.
I agree. And also, I would say Alicent probably has one of those sick trap doors. Like, she's probably got a sick trap door in there somewhere.
I could see that.
Queen's Chambers, yeah. But, yeah, so Rhaenyra asked Daemon if he loved Laena, and Daemon's response is, we were happy enough. She says, well, that in and of itself is a great achievement, and she tells him she's no longer a child, and then she plants one on him. And we start down this path that, again, first of all, it made your shirt much more apt, but is the thing that I kind of knew was going to happen. Like, I kind of knew these two ended up partnering up.
You knew that was I knew that was
a plot point that was coming.
Okay.
In the season.
I did not know that, but I did. I don't think I ever came on this podcast and outright said that, or outright predicted that or guessed it, but I definitely...
Well, we did suggest it strategically made sense.
We've suggested it strategically made sense. Last week, at the end of the episode, I kind of asked you about like which team you thought Daemon might end up falling on.
Right.
And this is what I foresaw as the most likely possibility. I felt from the very beginning that the butting heads between them two and the chemistry that they had was actually going to result in more of a teaming up than the opposite of that.
Right.
I did not see them splintering and ending up on different teams. So this was, obviously they hook up here and then they take it another step further at the end. But yeah, this was not necessarily, I mean, telegraphed sounds like I'm being negative about it. This was an outcome that I think if you were watching closely probably made a lot of sense to you.
Yeah, especially after that big talk that we ignored at the welcome party for the wedding between Rhaenyra.
Yeah. That's a great point. That is likely why everybody was hammering on us about
it, because it was clearly the indicator that
what was likely to come.
Yeah, these two are continuing their romance situation. They end up boning
and even alluding to marrying each other there on the dance floor.
Very much so. Yeah. Take me away to Dragonstone, marry me, cut down my father's Kingsguard.
Yep.
But they end up boning down in some kind of like incest teepee.
That's what it said on the outside? It is labeled incest
This is specifically for incest, this TP. And like you said, not all that shocking, but certainly they're working to sell us on the romance side of it, right? Because you do have to get past the incest and the weird Targaryen stuff before you can really bite into these characters, I think, in terms of their relationship.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm struggling a little, I'll say that.
Okay, and I know that other people are, because I think on the very first Sunday, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, incest. Like, who cares? Let's just do it.
There's no rules on the show. Yeah.
And other people were kind of like, speak for yourself. But yeah, it's just a television show. These Targaryens, we know that they in their, you know, their whole backstory is that this is the shit they like to do. Aemond and Aegon are talking about which one of them should marry their sister.
Well, and just for the record, like the reason that Gurm chose to insert these themes into his books is because historically they happened often.
Yeah. So
royal families did inbreeding stuff.
They did. There was no there wasn't any Tinder. There was no Hinge back then. You know,
they just had to get with their cousins.
You had limited
man.
Options. Who could blame them?
Couldn't be mingling with the peasants. You know?
But nah, so I still find their relationship arguably the most interesting on the show. So I was excited to see them kind of like reconnect, especially when they go all the way. And I don't mean that sexually, I mean that marriage-wise.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting. I'm looking forward to see how this plays out with these two finally on the same team, like
now scheming together. Yeah. Well, it seemed like it needed to happen,
even,
right?
Yeah. So I just I'm past the incest is what I just said long-windedly in about 6 minutes.
Well, and they've both failed miserably to make any real strides individually. So they need to team up to be able to do that. That seems like one of the really, I mean, I'll say, as far as my read goes on their relationship, Rhaenyra seems to be really taken with her uncle, and him like kind of just willing to go along for the ride so far.
That's a good point.
I'm not getting like lovey-dovey vibes from Daemon in terms of Rhaenyra, but the other way around, certainly she's expressing a lot of things to him that he's not really turning around and reciprocating.
You're right. That's a good call. But they do. They've said it. They've both said this before, or Daemon has said this before, and now Rhaenyra is kind of saying it, that they are stronger together. They make sense match-wise to like kind of defend this thing, to like
and to put themselves in a better position,
to make a good claim and put themselves in a better position.
Yeah. Point blank, she's like, look, nobody's going to question my heirs if it's you up there to defend them, right? So she has a point there, but again, you have to get past that whole uncle thing.
Yeah, uncle, father, husband,
uncle, father, Daemon,
lover.
Yeah. Aemond is off tracking Vhagar. It becomes pretty clear at this point what he's doing, but he finds her. And this is Alicent and Viserys' son, to be clear. Aemond. He's the one that they gave the pig to.
That's right.
And mocked. Yep. Okay? He approaches this massive sleeping Vhagar, Lady Laena's dragon. And this was so sick. He wakes up, looks him dead in the eye, and gears up for a Dracarys, but Aemond drops some of that language that we've seen in the dragon pit when they were training.
Doharis Vhagar.
Likiri. Those are the two things I got down on paper. Likiri. And he gets him to calm down. The dragon decides not to roast his ass. And remember, again, as far as we've been told, basically the dragon judges you as a human being, like whether or not you're worthy to be a rider. And you would assume the largest dragon in the world would do some pretty hardcore judging. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it immediately elevates this character, this child, Aemond, into a much bigger position than I previously imagined or saw him in. And what we get in the next time on House of the Dragon, when we see, oh my God, we're going to be jumping forward and dealing with these characters as they're older.
Yeah.
Is it opens up the opportunity for characters that you didn't really see as main characters or that we weren't even introduced to in the first couple episodes to really become key major players in what occurs throughout the course of this generational conflict. So yeah, he ends up climbing up these ropes. Vhagar's just got like a kid's rope
like a ladder.
gym, like a climbing ladder down the side of his back to get up on the saddle. He gets up, throws the orders at him to take off, and it is bucking bronco time. Mm-hmm. I mean, this dude is in for the ride of his life. But this scene was sick. It really redeemed all other dragon scenes in my eyes. I've made some complaints about the way the dragons look when they show them being ridden from a little bit of a distance so that you can get a feel for like, hey, look, he's actually on it or she's actually on it. But in this scene in particular, I was like, okay, they put in the time here. This looks really, really cool.
Okay, I'm surprised to hear you say that because
I am too. But I mean, and I had a feeling there was going to be people on the other side of it.
Well, it's not that I was like. It's not that I had an issue with it. It's just at the forefront of my mind while I was watching it, I was like, oh, Ross going to hate this.
He's going to hate it. Yeah. Dude, the second it started up, I was like, oh, don't make me think about Neverending Story again. Don't you do it.
Well, and this time it's actually like a little kid on it. So I was like, I was getting the Neverending Story vibes again.
Look, if he had yelled, yeah, it would have been bad.
He did do a yeah.
He did scream a lot. Yeah. He did a lot of like, ah, because he thought he was going to die.
Well, I know from subtitles there's at least one, yeah.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah. but
all in all, huge moment, huge scene.
It was a huge scene, and it's fine. It's totally fine. Vhagar is awesome, and for me, it's like they show the dragons so well, like from underneath and from far away and from close up, like when the dragons are just like laying there and stuff like that.
This was like from sleeping to gearing up to fly to take off, all of the shit, right?
The fact that it's like a little wacky when they kind of get in that like, you know, semi-close up to show somebody on the back of the dragon.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever.
I thought they did well with it this time, though. And then there was a farther off a shot where they had, like, I mean, you could see the full scale of the dragon and him on the back of it, and it really looked good. I was seriously impressed by this entire. I mean, it was like one of those scenes that got the hair to stand up on my arms. Like I was just like, God damn, this is like, it gives you so much scope to this creature. And what a win for Team Alicent.
Huge win.
Holy shit. Yeah. I mean, literally the biggest possible win I think you could achieve just kind of falls into their lap here because this kid gets ambitious because he was picked on and they gave him a pig. That really backfired. Talk about your all-time backfires, right? Yeah. Daemon's kids wake up Jace immediately and are like, someone stole Vhagar. I'm assuming because Jace was supposed to inherit Vhagar, it sounds like, or they assumed that he would at least get a shot at Vhagar.
The girls were supposed to get the shot.
Oh, the girls were.
One of the girls has a dragon, the other does not.
Right.
So it would have been the natural thing, at least, you know, presumably, that she would have gotten the opportunity to take her mother's dragon and bond with Vhagar.
Why do they wake up Jace?
So
that's not their brother, right?
But that's their cousin. That's their direct cousin.
Okay, and they're on the same team together, the same side of this thing.
Laenor is their uncle, and they seem to be. They've got their Jace and one of the girls. They've got the little moment at the funeral where he kind of goes over there,
hold hands,
intending to say something, and she just kind of like grabs his hand. So yeah, I think that the you know, currently the way that the teams are forming, at least I mean definitely in this episode, is that those girls are aligning themselves with Rhaenyra's boys,
right.
And Alicent's boys are kind of like they're on their own. They're the Greens,
right? Which makes sense because Daemon and Rhaenyra are now coupled up, so their kids are coupled up, and the Greens and Blacks line is pretty clearly being driven home at this point.
Look, you know, Laura, who's watching with me, definitely, you know, called this kid a little shit. Said he pulled a fast one. This was, you know, kind of a shitty move to do this at the funeral.
Aemond?
Yeah, I said it's kind of a baller move.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even let that woman's corpse get cold, and he's riding her dragon around.
So he flies the dragon back. He lands it. He squashes something. I don't know what. He puts out a fire.
She has no corpse. She was cremated.
And then he's like walking through the tunnel or whatever, and gets confronted. And he says it. He's like, "If you wanted her, you should have gotten on her. Like you should have gone and taken her."
He has some sick lines here. This kid.
And I was kind of like, yeah, like that should be. You're dealing with we've kind of referred to them as the nukes, right? Like these are the most important things.
Weapon possible, yeah.
In the land, weapons in the land. Like you gotta have these things. That should have been like step one. Is like we got to keep this dragon with us, right?
Somebody needs to go get on Vhagar as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like one of those things where maybe you have to assume there's some kind of window grace period after someone passes, their dragon's not supposed to be ridden in like X amount of time, and this kid just disrespected it and went and got on it.
I mean, yeah, he definitely disrespected it. He said to hell with decorum, but guess what? He got himself the biggest dragon in all of the realm.
And while he was getting picked on, you know, you kind of got the feeling Ivan said like this kid is soft. He was one of the ones I sort of branded in that way, and once he comes back from having bonded himself to Vhagar, He's got some swagger to him.
That'll give a man some confidence, Ross.
They're like, there he is, and he's like, here I am, or something like that.
Once again, they got the little one. They got the little Luke, like, going full-on, like, bloody murder, like a little kid scream. Those kids, I can't with them. I'm so glad.
What do you mean?
The little Luke and Jaehaerys, they're like, rah! Like when they're fighting, when they're fighting in the hallway. The one's like, I think it's the one that ends up cutting his eye out. He's doing this little like.
He's like 6. Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. He's doing like this little kid.
Okay, so I didn't even see the thing coming because when they show the scene where they get him out of bed. They get Jace out of bed. I was like, oh no, the kid drama. They immediately go down to greet him coming off of Vhagar's back.
Yeah.
And it turns into a full-blown kid fight.
Yeah.
Which I was like, kid fight! But then it gets violent. And I was like,
very violent.
Oh, then he's picking up a rock.
Yeah.
Now somebody's pulling out a shank. Yeah. Next thing you know,
there were daggers and rocks being picked up.
This kid lost an eye.
I thought for sure somebody was getting got here.
I thought somebody was going to die for sure. But
I thought like Luke or Jaehaerys were Jaehaerys, excuse me, were definitely dying here.
Yeah, we just get an eye guy,
but only
it's old Aemond.
They do the classic throw dirt in the face.
Yep, dirt in the face move straight into the eye shank.
Always works.
Classic move. But Aemond tells So when I say that he came back with some swagger, he grabs one kid by the neck and tells him he's going to die screaming in fire like his father.
The Undertaker style, grabs him by the neck and picks him up.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And he directly tells him, like, you know, I know who your dad is. Yeah. And then the other kid in the background obviously knows already, sort of. And he's like, oh, what, you didn't tell him or whatever, does that whole thing.
Right.
Which is when the whole fight breaks out. Turns ugly, he loses an eye. They all end up before Viserys with all the parents and the kids all arguing. All hell is breaking loose.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra's kids tell her Aemond called them bastards. Viserys asks Aemond for the truth of what happened. We see his eye. It is a gnarly scar. The eye is not coming back. It is gonzo.
Yeah.
An eye patch is a possibility as an option. I'm not sure he'll take it. I'm just saying Beric Dondarrion did.
I think an eye patch is coming.
Some people do. He might. And, Alicent starts blaming Rhaenyra's kids. Rhaenyra defends her kids and says the legitimacy of her son's birth was called into question. She full out brings this thing into court. Says it. Her kids called my kids bastards, accused them of not being from their legitimate father. When Rhaenyra brings all this up, Aemond, no left eye and all, smirks. Like he is full little shit through and through at this point. Like he's somebody to keep an eye on. He's definitely got a lot of personality to him. Just saying. From there, Viserys questions him, asks him who told him the lies about Rhaenyra's children, and Aemond throws it to Aegon.
Throws Aegon under the bus.
And says it was him, the window cranker.
Which I think is... So one of my first reactions to Aemond jumping on Vhagar and like getting that dragon, was that I can see some brother on brother conflict
as a result of
being coming into play, I should say,
because he's younger. So we're there to be, one of Alicent's children in line for the throne. He is not the first one, but he's got the biggest.
He now
has
dragon. The bigger, badder dragon.
Right.
So maybe they stay same team, but like
it's just an interesting thing to deal with.
It's just an interesting thing to deal with.
The kids don't handle shit like that well.
No, and we're seeing we are seeing this new attitude from him. And meanwhile, I don't know, Aegon, he's not really shown much except for maybe being kind of a booze hound.
Yeah, booze hound and a
crank hound.
Sexual deviant. But Aegon tells Viserys point blank, we know, Father. Everyone knows. Just look at them. And Viserys freaks out. And he's like, this infighting has to stop. We are a family. Now make your apologies and show goodwill toward one another. And he says, your father, your grandsire, your king demands it. And for just a second, I was like, oh, he pulled it off. He pulled it off. Everybody's going to leave the room. Everything's going to be fine. And then Alicent goes, that is insufficient. She says, I shall have one of her son's eyes in return. full eye for an eye, this woman goes, Alicent. Viserys is like, don't allow your temper to guide your judgment. And then she straight up says, Sir Criston, bring me the eye of Viserys Valerian. And you're like, what the fuck? This is... It's... I mean, I didn't see her going full cuckoo in front of everybody like this. Yeah. I suspected that there would be scheming that went on behind the scenes as a result, that she was obviously very upset about what happened to her son, but he survived. They got the dragon. It's one eye, and she wasn't there to see what happened, right? So we've seen a scene like this before, by the way, when Joffrey basically accuses Arya of attacking him off in the forest or whatever with Sansa.
Yeah.
And then they all get dragged before Robert Baratheon, and there's all this infighting and arguing, and Ned Stark horribly handles it. It reminded me of that, but it's just interesting to see how they, like, it's one thing when the adults have conflict. When the kids have it, it's almost handled in the exact same way. Like, they don't really know. No good decision is made. No witness can be trusted over another, right? Everybody has their own reason for saying what they say. And it's humorous. So... yeah, in the end, Viserys proclaims that anyone who questions the birth of Rhaenyra's sons and their legitimacy shall have their tongue removed.
I also think it's just like, it's interesting, right? Because if you remove the giant prize, right? If you remove what is at stake, which is the throne, succession, the rule, essentially,
right?
And if you want to make a modern day comparison, it's basically just any type of like giant generational wealth or inheritance, right? You know,
power generally,
money, all of these things. It's like it's certainly an indictment of that, right? Because if you remove that, nobody gives a shit. They're just a family with kids, and maybe somebody cheated on their husband and has kids from another, parent. So it's just I always that's just kind of like playing in my mind when you watch these scenes. Is like, none of these people really should hate each other.
But it's the stakes that poison it all.
But the stakes are poisoning it all. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Everybody having this ulterior motive.
Right.
And these underlying ambitions that are all impact. I mean, it's the power thing, right? And the fact that absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely is not without its, tracing here in any Game of Thrones show, really, so far. Alicent snaps, grabs the cat's paw dagger, goes to take an eye herself, I guess.
Yeah.
Scene we saw in the trailer.
Yes.
Knew it was coming. Surprised it wasn't like a penultimate or a finale type situation. Really excited it wasn't, to be honest. Because I was like, okay, good. They didn't unsheath this big moment, no pun intended, in that trailer. Criston Cole tries to go in to like break up this fight. First of all, Rhaenyra catches her arm just really cleanly and athletically and powerfully strong. Criston Cole tries to go in. Daemon stops him. Otto tells Alicent, release the blade. And then they have this little conversation between the two of them, Alicent and Rhaenyra, where they air things out. And she's like, exhausting, wasn't it? Hiding beneath the cloak of your own righteousness. But now they see you as you are, right? And Alicent cuts her arm with this dagger. Like, she takes a swing when she lets it go, basically.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, man, she's bleeding pretty good. Like, did she get the artery and she's about to die?
She got the
area,
slash, right?
Yeah, I was like, okay, that would be a shocking outcome from this scene if we'd lost Rhaenyra right here.
It would be. The fact that everybody, including Rhaenyra, is remaining pretty calm about this
ends up being the indicator
kind of
that,
was like,
she's okay.
Okay, I think she's okay. But yeah, that is a serious wound, as we see just shortly thereafter.
It's going to have a scar, but it will heal, apparently.
But it was certainly played for effective drama as she holds her hand there and blood is just like pouring off of her arm.
And it's the shock, right, that everybody has that she would go this far, that she would do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even Alicent, she drops the dagger, right? And it is kind of in awe herself at what she has just done and how far this went.
Did you think when she calls for Criston to go take the eye, were you like, oh my God, Kristen's going to cut a little kid's eye out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 100%. I was like, oh my God, he's really going to do this. This is about to be a thing we have to watch, especially with all they've shown us in this show so far.
Yeah. We get a little nod there to the fact that he is her sworn protector. So that is her own personal Kingsguard now. But of course, he is not there to do her bidding to like take justice and revenge. He's there to protect her from from harm being done to her. So he's not really like into like the whole eye taking from the kid thing so much. Loved Damon coming in to stop him. I hope that is a foreshadow as well.
Well, I mean, we've had it before, right? They got faced off against each other at the tournament.
Of course. How could I forget?
From the second they had that tournament scene, I've been like, these two are going to throw down.
Yeah,
100%.
So I think that's a pretty easy prediction to make.
Building it more,
you gotta think that there's going to be some more.
Well, it's the reason it's exciting is because these two are very good sword fighters.
That's right.
Very exciting, warrior characters. So yeah, it's gonna be tight to watch them fight.
But to this point, I thought it was. I think this was the moment where I was like, okay, they're really they're dialing up Damon here. I thought that this was this episode towards the end of it. Obviously, there's the thing that goes on that we talked about up front, but like. Thought they shown Damon in the brightest light in this episode. He felt like he was being positioned as like, we like this guy officially now. We're kind of rooting for him. Not that we weren't already in a little bit, almost like reluctantly, but.
Well, out of all the options, he is the one that has been, I mean, they're all unlikable in one way or the other. There's something with every character that you could point to and be like, this is a major morally questionable flaw that this person has.
Right. So I was that's a good point. And that was my, that was the roller coaster that I was on here, is that I started, it was like, oh man, Damon, Rhaenyra, very clearly being positioned as the good guys here. And then they start to have their conversation about Laenor, and I'm like, and I loved that too, because it was like, oh man, nobody's good. Nobody is good on this show, and that's
all gray.
That's usually something that makes for a really interesting story. But I did, even after this scene, and then with the scene where Alicent talks to her dad Otto, Alicent is definitely, arguably. She is certainly a front runner for most hateable character on the show right now.
Yeah, because it's difficult to put yourself in his shoes. I mean, it's hard to imagine, trying to take it that far. And like I said, with her kid being alive still, it was like, what are you doing, lady? It's just kind of.
I thought that I also was, it was interesting to see it go there, because I commented about how last week, like, the internet was like fully against Alicent, like hated her automatically after that episode. And I didn't get all the way there with that, but this episode certainly pushes you further in that direction if you weren't already there. So
I'm still in the camp of not rooting for anybody really.
Okay,
I'm watching all of them maneuver. Alicent,
you're Damon leaning up against the wall, watching it all play.
Yeah,
out.
Because Alicent and Rhaenyra and Damon, they're all kind of the ones I'm choosing between.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, they're sort of all even.
Yeah.
In terms of the reason I have to judge or not judge each of them.
Okay.
So I haven't really decided whose team I'm on.
Okay.
I'm a free agent still.
Good spot to be in. Good spot to be in.
This scene ends with Aemond also coming up and he puts his head on his mom, Alicent, after she's sliced Rhaenyra, and says, do not mourn me, mother. I may have lost an eye, but I gained a dragon. And Viserys says, this proceeding is at an end. Great meeting, dude. Went really, really well. Today's episode is also brought to you by NordVPN. NordVPN, here to drastically enhance your web browsing experience and data security. No one likes being watched or tracked, even when they have nothing to hide. That's why it's important you step up your privacy game whenever possible. If you aren't using a VPN right now, you are currently open to having your internet data creeped on in a big way. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. It's a service that protects your internet connection and privacy online, creates an encrypted tunnel for you to... for your data, and protects your online identity by hiding your IP address, allows you to use public Wi-Fi hotspots safely, and more. It's the only way to be sure that your real location and IP address are hidden, your online data is encrypted, and your browsing history is invisible to your internet service provider and other third-party entities. Everybody who cares about their privacy should be using a VPN right now. NordVPN is the best and fastest VPN provider in the business. It's software, not hardware. Super easy to use across every major platform: Windows, Android, iOS, macOS, and Linux. Even your Android TV supports NordVPN. You can connect with just one click or enable auto-connect for zero-click protection. I personally love it because if you travel abroad, go on vacation, whatever, you You can still make sure you have access to your favorite shows and movies from your home country on location-based streamers like Netflix using NordVPN. And because at this point, I think it's important we all take our internet privacy seriously, obviously. Grab your exclusive OCC NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/OCC to get a huge discount on your NordVPN plan, plus free threat protection and 4 months free. The deal is completely risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose except a sense of insecurity. Link for the deal in the description of the episode. Thank you to NordVPN for supporting the Clam Fam and our online security. Again, that's nordvpn.com/OCC, code OCC. So Otto visits Alicent in her chambers. She admits she lost composure, assaulted the princess. Apparently, gossip is already spreading that she's gone mad, which I found to be interesting. She acknowledges that basically she has assured that Viserys' favor will forever rest with Rhaenyra. That if there was any back and forth there for Viserys, that now she's screwed that up entirely forever, and it'll always be Rhaenyra who has his favor over Alicent. Otto says, shockingly, we play an ugly game, but now for the first time I see you have the determination to win it. And we got this shot of Otto as it was all unfolding there in that room, where he kind of looked like, oh, like a little surprised and excited in a way of how things were going. And in regard to Aemond and Vhagar, he says the boy was right. It's worth 1,000 times the price he paid. So he's really high on his family's situation now, right? What was your takeaway from that scene? Just
so I think that
Otto is back. First of all,
Otto is back, and I think it finally confirmed. When we left Otto last, we were
still arguing about where he was at.
Kind of still arguing about where he was at, whether his intentions were, purely like looking out for his own kin and his daughter and his new grandchildren,
or the realm.
Right, or the realm, or if he was just like a full-on schemer that would kind of do anything to
like Larys,
like Larys, or like Rhaenys accuses Corlys of doing, kind of fulfill his own ambition.
Right.
So for me, I thought this scene kind of answered that question pretty definitively. That Otto is out for himself and out for the ambition of his family.
Yeah, the fact that his daughter, who he planted as his best friend's new wife, so that her children would be heir to the Iron Throne, has just assaulted the princess, his best friend's daughter.
Yeah.
And he's stoked.
Yeah, and his takeaway from all of that is that he liked what he saw.
And one kid lost an eye.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, hey, we are doing it, you and I. Look at us. I didn't know you were as good as you are. Right. Wow, what a player in the game. And as I said, this is something I noticed, though, a few episodes back, that Alicent handles herself very well. Now, I'm not saying that she did this episode, but typically she has handled herself very well in the playing of the Game of Thrones. Now, I think the longer she's been isolated and alone, left to deal with her own shit with just Viserys there rotting away, I think that has put her in a precarious position where she finally unraveled a bit. But now her dad is back. They're going to be on the same team, clearly plotting and scheming together.
Yeah.
These factions are forming very clearly throughout the course of the rest of this episode. And just an obvious one here between Otto and his daughter, right?
Yeah, and I think that he's proud because what he's seeing is like the seeds that he planted, essentially, for
coming to roost the chickens and the seeds. Sure.
These seeds they're blooming into to fully open flowers. Right,
the beanstalk has sprung forth.
Yeah. All of the metaphors and analogies that you can think of there. If it's not 10:30 p.m. where you are, But this is what he wanted, right? He wanted her to have this ferociousness and
to make moves, and she did.
To have this game in her.
I mean, look, when he left, he told her point blank, "This is the situation. It's you versus her. It's you versus her." And this is the first time he's seen her go try to take her out. So, I mean, or at least do something, right? So
it's kind of it kind of echoed the Cersei line right here. Like he might as well have said in the Game of Thrones, You play to win. You win or you die.
You live or you die. Or yeah, you win or you die. Yeah, yeah. Next, we're with Rhaenyra. She's being tended to by a maester because she's got the gnarly blade cut on her arm.
Whole squad getting scarred up.
I don't like seeing it. I'm worried about the wound. I hope it will heal. The maester is not worried about it, though. Says it will heal, just be a gnarly scar. He says Valyrian steel cuts clean. And I think that was specifically to make us not worry about this whole maybe she's a genetic, like her dad. Maybe she doesn't handle cuts and stuff well.
Ah, good point. Didn't think about that.
Laenor comes in and says, I should have been there. And I think he says, did anyone get hurt? Which is, again, he's not...
No, he comes in like a bumbling idiot here.
Yeah,
for sure.
What's this guy's deal, man?
Yeah, he's clueless.
But he says, I should have been there, and Rhaenyra says, those should be your house words. Great line. Rhaenyra catches Laenor up on what happened, because, again, he was not there in that. He missed all this. He says he failed her with regard to their marriage.
I love that. This was great. This was great. Laenor misses this entire thing.
All of it.
Like, maybe the best just scene. I thought it was just funny from an audience member, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, not only was this all-out insanity at Driftmark, but like for the audience, this is maybe the best scene we've gotten in the whole show. And like this guy, he just missed it. He just wasn't there.
Because he's off with Carl with a Q. Because their love is real, you know?
Yeah.
Which is why they run off together and shave heads.
Well,
but
we love love, so.
Yeah, that's true. Rhaenyra tells Laenor that she'd hoped to bear his children, and he says he hates the gods for making him as they did. And she tells him she does not, that he's an honorable man with a good heart, which is a rare thing. And Laenor says, look, this has gone really shittily. Carl, with a Q, he's about to head off to the Stepstones. He's going to do a bit of fighting. When he does that, I'm recommitting myself to you, babe. I promise when he leaves soon, it's totally going to happen. I'm gonna recommit myself to you. I'm back. I swear to God, I'm gonna raise our kids as princes of the realm, like I should have been. And Rhaenyra just looks nonplussed. Like she's not even really like. She's just kind of like, should I marry my uncle and get rid of you?
That's exactly the reaction that she has.
It's
kind of like that's a sweet thought, but not.
I think you're out.
Not what I need.
Yeah,
not what we need.
Alicent apologizes to Viserys in their carriage while they travel to their ship because they're going to go back to King's Landing, obviously. But Viserys is just like, fuck's sake, get me out of this carriage, bumping around. I got all these open wounds. I'm missing half of an arm. Goddamn fingers are falling off every 20 minutes. Larys and Alicent on the ship are talking, and Larys says, if it's an eye you want to balance the scales, I am your servant. So he comes in and offers up his services to...
Go get that eyeball.
Get some revenge here.
Yeah.
And she says, no, that will not be necessary, but your devotion does not go unnoticed. Again, this guy got away scot-free, murdered his dad and brother. All right. And when I look back on it, because you and I kind of discussed, like, wow, he's a total psycho. He totally snapped. Well, the other read for me is that his dad and brother, to him in his eyes, had misplayed their positions. Right? His dad, you could almost say, well, the fact that he allowed Harwin to do this at all makes him, he's got to go. Harwin, the fact that he impregnated the princess, that he was party to all this. So in Larys' eyes, I think that was the way he sort of justified it. Well, they've screwed up what we have going for our family, so I'm going to take them both out and take over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things these little evil psycho kids do on Succession shows.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so he's gotten away with that scot-free. He's sitting here offering up his services to Alicent still. Obviously, he is on team Alicent and Otto and the Greens, as it were.
Yeah, and I thought that this scene had something interesting going on between the two of them, at least from kind of like how Alicent was handling this. You know, this post-Otto conversation. Her dad has told her that, like, you know, she does have that dog in her, and
that dragon or dog. It's dog for her.
And she is. I got the feeling that she was manipulating him a little bit better here. She's at the end of last episode. She's pretty scared with this monster that she's suddenly dealing with.
She's shook.
And here she's a little bit more comfortable and is kind of saying the right things, right? Like, no, do not do that. That won't be necessary. But
I'm gonna need you to do some stuff.
Don't worry. Like, you're still like my close confidant here, and I value that, and I'll need it soon. So, like, you know.
Yeah, it was almost to acknowledging, look, I see where the stakes are now.
Right.
And I see how everyone else is going to play this, and I see what's going down, and my son just lost an eye, and I'm pissed, and I'm going to want you to do some stuff soon, right? So let's go to Rhaenyra and Daemon talking on the cliffside. She says fire has such strange power. She acknowledges that while fire has given their family everything that they have, at the same time, it also just took her lover, Sir Harwin Strong, and Daemon's wife, Lady Lena. She tells Daemon, I need you, uncle. And then she breaks into Valerian and says, I cannot face the Greens alone. Let us bind our blood just as Aegon the Conqueror did with his sisters. So she makes a direct historic reference to kind of like write off the whole uncle-niece thing. With you as my husband and prince consort, my claim would not be so easily challenged. We have always been meant to burn together. And Daemon says, well, we could not marry unless Laenor were dead. And she says, I know. I know. So Daemon immediately goes and hires, he goes full Assassin's Creed, and he goes and hires Carl with a Q.
That's his doing bad shit hood.
And I thought, like, just for funsies, he was about to, like, bang Carl with a Q, too.
There was a little bit of that going on.
He was getting real seductive with it. I didn't know if
he was just going to kill Carl, just, like, for the, for funsies there.
Like,
but it would or maybe like get a quick, session or something.
It seemed like it was a possibility.
It was I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, so he goes and gets Carl with a Q, and obviously our read there is, all right, he's just paid Carl with a Q to kill Laenor.
Yes.
Because him and Rhaenyra just decided they're going to get married, but they need to get rid of him first.
Yeah, and then notes, quick death with witnesses, and in Pentos, like, it doesn't really matter what your name is or where you come from or who your parents are.
Just how much gold is in your pocket.
Just how much gold is in your pocket. So, like,
basically, like, you can build your own badass life out there.
You can be very rich and, well thought of and allured, essentially, instead of just Carl with a Q.
Yeah, AKA, somebody's whore.
AKA Crazy Carl, AKA...
I love Carl with a Q, man. I'm stoked on him. I'm happy this went the way it did. So the next thing we see is him, obviously.
He's AKA a Patreon. He's a Patreon because that,
Sure. He ends up starting up this fight that we talked about earlier, where the whole thing is a ruse. Laenor is in on the whole thing after the fact. You have to reprocess it, right? And what does he tell him? You always looked down on me.
You always looked down on me.
It was kind of the line that I was like, wait a minute, what? Because it was just sort of weird. We've never had any indication that Laenor looks down on anybody, really. They go into their whole charade. That kid runs off, says, like, I'll go get the guards. And then it turns out the guards are like Corlys and his wife and their whole family and everyone else that just comes like streaming in. And there's this burnt up corpse.
Yep.
And Rhaenys gets down on the ground next to it, and I thought that was like her IDing the body, being like, it is my son! Ah!
Yeah, for sure.
And then they flash to Shavehead Laenor. I was watching the show with Jared, my co-host on the Ross Bolen podcast, and he immediately called it. He was like, I don't think that dude's dead. Like, they just... And I guess the fire, you always suspect it, right?
It was weird because you're like, okay, so Carl is going to get the best of this guy. He is, the boss of the Stepstones. He's out there just, slaying.
Sure.
He's just slaying out there.
Yeah.
Just like Rhaenyra does on our T-shirt here.
Absolutely. BolenMedia.com.
Like, so he's going to get the best of Laenor. Laenor is rusty. He wanted to go to the Stepstones and fight, but he didn't get to. Like, he's been teaching Laenor. Like, he's got him. And then all of a sudden, there's just a body in the fire, and you're like, that's weird.
Yeah, like he killed him and then what?
And then like kicked him in the fire?
Like he really, really hated him underneath it all. So it was just sort of an odd thing.
It was a little weird. I was caught off guard by it, but I was like, all right.
And when they zoomed in, I think it may have been to show that they had like taken off his necklaces and put them on the dead body.
Probably his boots too.
But again,
because the boots are sticking out.
But there's the scene with Daemon on the stairs, like doing the neck snap on the guy. And was that even connected, or what the hell was that?
Also, you just like rip off this dude's boot, and like you'd be like, "Oh, that's not Laenor's foot."
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if my mom could ID my foot if you set the top half of me on fire or whatever.
But we watched Daemon creep down the stairs and spy neck break that guy, and that has to be the body that they used. So, like, the only thing that I can consider to talk myself out of that was that Daemon was like doing what he needed to do to help Carl get into that fire room into the den, if you will.
But he didn't know.
And so then leaves that body, but like that Carl would have just had to anticipate that body would be available.
Yeah, I mean, Carl and Lenore clearly in cahoots planned this, right? Damon and what he's doing there and whether or not, like, the only thing I can draw is maybe Damon didn't tell Rhaenyra that he actually wasn't going to allow Lenore to be killed. He was going to set it up so that he could get out of there.
Yeah.
Right? As another one of the weird, oh, wait, this is a good guy move thing that, like, he would randomly do. And to draw us back.
One going to have his dead wife's brother murdered?
Yeah, I really don't know. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I could see that being a selling point. So something happened there. There's something we're missing that I'm assuming is one of the things we will get into later this week on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. But before we get to that, Damon and Rhaenyra do this weird marriage ceremony with... They're taking a blood oath.
Which we got to assume is extremely Valyrian / Targaryen.
Full old
tradition.
School. Yeah.
Traditional.
Possibly secret.
Marriage.
Cliffside. Like, I'm not sure if Viserys is aware of this or who is aware of this.
Families are there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the kids are there. They're watching.
Well, they do like some blood, smearing on the face.
Okay. I always watch in movies and TV shows the blood handshake thing is like a very
Brothers.
It's a common trope.
Yeah,
that's a painful ass cut, man.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna scab over, and you can't use your hand without like what
huge pain in the ass. It's part of the commitment,
It's awful.
2 weeks you got to take off and deal with that cut after that. Can't play golf with that thing.
No, thank you.
No golf. Typing is a pain.
Like I'll do maybe a pinprick on a finger or something like that, but
yeah, Well, mafia's for you then.
Okay.
Not Targaryen incest marriage.
Yeah, or
to get into that, you got to cut yourself deep.
Yeah, or any type of children's movie where like you do like a brotherhood thing.
Yeah.
For some reason, a Macaulay Culkin
that
movie
was like in the
80s.
That was like 80, like because they would never do that now because you don't want kids running around cutting each other
like
open.
A blood handshake thing in My Girl with Macaulay Culkin or something.
Because the thing that always occurs to me when I see one of these blood oaths is, man, that's unsanitary.
Right, well, yeah, that too.
That's not safe.
No way.
You got what they got now.
Scratch that. I'm out on the pinprick now, too.
And Damon was like bathing in the crab feeder's blood. So I don't know if you really want to be like getting down with his blood, all that. I mean, there's just a lot of questions.
Did they cut their lip, too, right? They did a little...
Or just smeared blood on it, or they cut it. I'm not sure. There was a lot of blood smearing. It was weird.
This was actually the most passionate that I felt like I'd seen Damon towards Rhaenyra, by the way.
In terms of selling the love part of it,
he goes in for that makeout kiss. That French. He Frenches her.
Well, and this is when they kind of sold me. When I was like, okay, I can do this. I think I'm going to have to resell myself every week on this, but I can do this. I can be Team Damon and Rhaenyra.
How about this? Let me put it...
Which I think is where we're supposed to be. I think it's where we're supposed to go as an audience.
Well, certainly after it's revealed that Lenore is not murdered by Crazy Carl with a Q.
Which I hope is the case.
But yeah, that's definitely where I feel the show kind of pushing me.
What if Carl's just taking him out there so he can talented Mr. Ripley him with an oar?
Well, I thought about that too. What I kind of expected to happen before I realized that Lenore was on the paddle boat is it like is that Caraxes was just gonna like swoop down real low and just like burn that shit.
That'd be a funny way to give it a storyline.
I'm so used to loose ends having to be tied up in this type of movie, whether it's like a spy thriller or a heist movie or like
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna Joker their asses.
Yeah. Oh, like Damon was just gonna take them both out right there.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ceremony, the marriage was definitely interesting. Oh, here's what I was gonna say. I don't know if you've made this connection, but the relationship between Rhaenyra and Damon, it's exactly the same as Jon Snow and Daenerys, just the sexes are flipped.
Right. In terms of
uncle niece, Daenerys was Jon Snow was aunt nephew. So
uncle niece, aunt nephew.
Yeah.
These Targaryens, they got a formula.
That's right.
Yeah. We'll discuss that further on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Later this week, Barrett and I will further digest and dissect episode 7, Driftmark with hotline calls from members of the Mollusk Militia. Crustacean Nation is just $5 to join, support the podcast, and get these additional episodes driven by hotline calls from the Mollusk Militia. It's the $10 tier. You get the full video of every episode, and you get access to the hotline number, our Discord as well. The Discord is strong. We have a lot of fun on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. I am confident in saying that a lot of the people there would tell you that it ends up actually sometimes being the better episode each week of our discussion surrounding what actually occurred on the show.
Certainly. I mean, you got to remember that we are, like I kind of alluded to, we're putting this podcast out right after the show's on Sunday. We watch, we get in the studio.
Sometimes we forget things. I say stuff wrong.
So there's not even enough time for either one of us to like jot down notes to, like you said, make sure we hit every important thing that happened in this episode. We're really just like giving those kind of off-the-cuff thoughts, starting to digest the episode, talking through some things that we saw on screen, and kind of like painting with broader strokes. So if you want to dive deeper with us and get into the nitty-gritty and kind of like really answer some questions, like what always happens is that by Thursday we have some answers to the questions that we ask on this show.
And we have new questions.
And we have new questions as well. Yeah. So it's definitely a good... if not a better episode, a great companion, like a great follow-up episode.
Absolutely. I always end up feeling a little bit different about certain aspects of the episode later in the week after I've had a few days to let it settle. And then, of course, Barrett and I always end up doing a rewatch before we do our second episode, the one that goes on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, because it helps us even further, like I said, we're digesting here. That's what we do here on OCC, on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. By the way, I should note, when you join today on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, you gain access to our entire backlog. So all the prior episodes, all the other week's hotline calls, you can listen to those. And there's a companion podcast for every single episode of HBO's classic crime drama, The Sopranos, available to everybody in the Mollusk Militia tier until House of the Dragon's first season run is over. So get in there while you still can and enjoy it. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, where Barrett and I will be later this week with further discussion and analysis of Episode 7, Driftmark. Follow us on social media at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles on TikTok, at Oysters, Clams, Cockles on Instagram, and at Clams and Cockles on Twitter. Follow Barrett at Barrett Dudley on Twitter and Instagram. I am Ross Bolen. Follow me at WR Bolen on Twitter and Instagram. Listen to the Ross Bolen podcast wherever you listen to OCC. By the way, we have full video of all these episodes on YouTube. You just go on there and you search. You say, Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, and then we pop up on the YouTube machine for you to watch. It's cool. Get in there. Enjoy. We will be back later this week. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Crazy stuff, Clam Fam. This was a great, great episode.
To put a button on it, I loved this episode. I thought it had some of the strongest scenes we've gotten yet, and it started to assuage some of the worries that or dislikes that I had about last week, because once again I started to feel like I was getting to know this lot of characters, which was an interesting thing to have to do halfway through a season. But there, it felt like the focus was once again slightly narrower on our actual core nuclear families. And so to get that generational feel that I know that the show is going for, was really solid in this episode. Not worried about the time jump going into 8, because it's just the kids.
We're cool with it now.
And I'm kind of, it's fine. Like,
let's just be over it.
Yeah. And supposedly it's one of the last ones that we're going to get. So very, very excited to see where we where we land, how far in advance we are.
Yeah, we've got 8, 9, and 10 left. And as we said, we'll discuss even further on Patreon this week. Very exciting stuff so far. Let us hear from you on social media. Barrett and I are on Twitter and Instagram. We check the DMs and reply to people when we can. So get in there. Appreciate y'all. Thank you very much for listening. Let everybody you know who listens to House of the Dragon about our show, if you would. It means a lot. And go to bolenmedia.com/shop to get yourself a Party Like Damon, Slay Like Rhaenyra t-shirt, or a Save a Horse, Ride a Dragon shirt. Until next time, peace!